Episode 1: The Silent Guest at Hollow Ridge Motel. The Hollow Ridge Motel was located on a long stretch of road, barely visible from the highway. It was the kind of place that only the desperate or the lost would stumble upon. The building was old, the paint peeling off the walls, the neon sign flickering intermittently like it was on its last legs. Nathan, 32, had been working the night shift there for the last 3 months. It wasn't glamorous, but it was quiet, just the way he liked it. He had grown used to the long, lonely hours, the only company being the faint hum of the fridge in the back room and the occasional car passing by. He had learned to ignore the creepy stories that surrounded the place. Stories about people disappearing into the night, about a ghost that supposedly haunted room 12. But Nathan didn't believe in that. Not until tonight. It was just past midnight, and Nathan was behind the desk, mindlessly scrolling through his phone. The silence in the motel was suffocating, and he welcomed the break from his usual thoughts. Then the doorbell rang. A man stepped inside, his presence immediate and unsettling. He was tall, dressed in a dark, well-worn coat, his face partially obscured by a hood. There was an aura of coldness about him that seemed to seep into the room. "I need a room," the man said in a flat, emotionless tone. Nathan looked him over. The man's clothes were pristine, almost too perfect for someone traveling on the road. His eyes, though, were what unsettled Nathan the most. Cold, vacant, as if they were staring through him, not at him. Nathan nodded and handed him a key to room 12, the one everyone said was cursed. "It's $60 for the night. Room 12, Nathan said, trying to ignore the chill creeping up his spine. The man took the key and, without a word, walked away. Nathan thought it was strange that he didn't even look at the room number when he handed it over. But he pushed the thought aside, figuring the guy was just another traveler with no need for pleasantries. The night wore on, but there was something about the air that felt off. The stillness in the motel had become oppressive, and Nathan couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. Every time he glanced at the security monitors, his gaze would inevitably land on room 12. The man had been inside for hours, and yet there had been no sign of movement. Nothing. No sounds, no knocks on the door, no calls to the desk. Just silence. The kind of silence that made Nathan's skin crawl. Around 2:30 a.m., Nathan decided to check on the guest. Maybe the man had fallen asleep, he thought, or maybe he was one of those people who didn't make a sound when they walked. But as Nathan approached room 12, a strange feeling washed over him. He couldn't place it, but it was as if the room itself was holding its breath. He knocked softly at first, no answer. He knocked again, louder this time, but still nothing. There was something about this man that made Nathan hesitate. Something is wrong. Nathan opened the door with the spare key, but what he saw made his heart race. The room was empty. The bed was perfectly made, the lights off, the curtains drawn. It was like no one had ever been there. Nathan's mind spun. The key had been used. He'd seen the man take it. He had heard the man walk down the hallway earlier. But now, there was no trace of him. The man had disappeared. Nathan rushed back to the desk, shaking his head, trying to make sense of it. Could he have imagined the whole thing? But the security footage didn't lie. He had seen the man enter the room. He had even seen him take the key, but now there was no sign of him. The motel was quiet again, almost too quiet. Nathan's phone suddenly buzzed, snapping him out of his thoughts. It was a text message from the hotel manager. Call me when you get this. I've been hearing strange things about room 12. I need to warn you." Nathan's hands shook as he dialed the manager's number. "Hello," the manager answered, sounding out of breath. "What's going on?" Nathan asked. There was a pause on the other end. Then the manager spoke, his voice low and tense. "Room 12. It's been empty for years. No one stays there. The last guest who checked in, they found his body in the room 2 days later, his eyes wide open, staring at the door. We don't rent that room anymore, but for some reason, people keep trying to book it. I don't know why, and worse, they never leave." Nathan's heart pounded. He stared at the security monitors again, his pulse racing. Was the man still in the building? He checked the cameras. Nothing. That's when the bell rang again. Nathan turned, expecting another customer, but it was the same man, the one from room 12. He stepped through the door, his face pale, his eyes still lifeless and vacant. He didn't look at Nathan. He just walked past him, heading toward the back of the building. His footsteps echoed eerily in the silent motel. Nathan froze, his heart pounding in his chest. What was happening? As the man walked past, Nathan noticed something horrifying. His hands, they were covered in something wet, dark, and sticky. It didn't look like blood. It looked like something thick and unnatural. The man didn't speak and didn't react to Nathan standing there in shock. He just kept walking, as though he was in a trance. Nathan grabbed the phone and dialed the police, but as he looked up, the man was gone, vanished into the hallway. He ran to the hallway, calling out for the man, but there was no answer. The back door was wide open, letting in the wind, and Nathan could feel the cold air seeping in. The police arrived in minutes, but the man was gone. There was no sign of him, nothing. The back door was locked. The cameras showed no trace of him ever walking back inside. But then they found something. In room 12. They hadn't checked it yet. When they entered, they found a body, or what was left of one. It was the same man, but his body was contorted unnaturally, his mouth frozen in an eternal scream. The officer who examined the body looked up at Nathan, his face pale. "We've seen this before. Same thing. It happens every time." Nathan's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" The officer hesitated. "Room 12. It doesn't just kill people, it traps them, and then it lets them go. Until the next time." Nathan's blood ran cold as he realized the truth. The man had never left. The motel wasn't just haunted, it was a trap, and the next guest was already on their way. What do you think happens in room 12? Do you believe that the motel is really trapping people, or is something else going on? Have you ever felt like you were in a place that shouldn't exist? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to hear more terrifying tales from the edge of reality. Episode 2. The Watcher at Midnight Gas. There's something about working the overnight shift at a small gas station that feels different from every other job. Michael, a 28-year-old man, had always loved the isolation, the peace, the rhythm of the empty hours. The gas station was tucked away on an old, forgotten county road, the kind of place that passed unnoticed by travelers unless they were desperate for fuel. Michael didn't mind it. It was quiet. No one bothered him. At least that was until tonight. It was just past 1 a.m. when the door chimed. A man stepped in, his long coat dragging on the floor as he walked with deliberate slowness. His face was hidden by the brim of his dark hat, and his eyes, when they finally met Michael's, had a strange coldness to them, like they were not fully human. "Can I help you?" Michael asked, trying to sound casual, but there was something about the man that made him feel uneasy right away. The man didn't respond right away. He just stared at Michael for a second too long before answering, "I need a room for the night." His voice was calm, but something about the way he said it made Michael's skin crawl. There was no urgency, no tiredness, just an eerie calmness. Michael checked the register. "We don't have rooms, just gas and snacks. Are you sure you're at the right place?" The man didn't seem fazed by Michael's words. He just smiled, an unsettling smile that barely lifted the corners of his lips. "I've noticed you working here. Every night, same time, same routine." Michael felt his blood run cold. This was a man who wasn't just another random customer. He knew too much. The man didn't buy anything. He just stood there by the counter, watching Michael as he worked. Michael couldn't shake the feeling that this man wasn't here for a simple transaction. His eyes never left him, studying every small movement Michael made, like he was trying to piece together a puzzle. A few minutes passed, and Michael tried to ignore the man, going about his work. But when he glanced up again, he saw that the man was no longer just standing. He had moved to the far corner of the station, sitting in a chair, staring at the blank screen of a TV that hadn't been used in years. Michael felt a creeping sensation down his spine. He didn't move. He didn't check his phone, didn't look in the magazines or snacks. He just sat there, his eyes locked on nothing, completely motionless. The silence became unbearable. Michael felt his heartbeat quicken. What was this guy's deal? An hour passed. The man didn't move. Michael glanced up from the counter again. The man was still sitting there, but now it felt like he was staring at Michael, no longer at the TV. The whole situation felt wrong. At one point, Michael walked over to the bathroom, trying to shake off the discomfort. But when he crossed the room, he felt the man's eyes on him. That unsettling gaze never left him. Michael couldn't focus. The man was still there, sitting, staring at him from across the room. The clock on the wall seemed to move too slowly. Was the man waiting for something? A sudden chime broke the silence. The door opened again. Another customer walked in, but the man didn't acknowledge them. His attention was fixed solely on Michael. Michael continued to ring up the new customer, trying to ignore the fact that the man hadn't moved an inch. The new customer left without much conversation, and the door chimed again as it closed. That's when Michael noticed the man was standing now. Without any warning, he started moving toward the back of the station, his heavy boots echoing in the stillness. Michael was confused. He couldn't imagine why the man was heading toward the back. The man had no reason to be there. There were no other rooms or services. Michael watched him through the security monitor. He stepped outside, walking toward the far side of the parking lot, where the old shed was. He stopped in front of it, staring into the darkness. Michael was about to call the police when the man suddenly turned and walked back. His steps were slow and deliberate, like he knew exactly how much time he had. It was getting late, nearing 3 a.m., and the silence was crushing. Michael kept his distance, but his eyes never left the man. When the man stepped back into the station, Michael felt an intense urge to confront him. What was this guy really up to? "Can I help you?" Michael asked again, trying to mask the fear in his voice. But the man didn't answer. Instead, he walked right up to the counter, his eyes fixed on Michael with that unnerving smile. "Do you ever get scared working here all alone?" the man asked, his tone too calm, too knowing. Michael felt his stomach twist. He was starting to sweat now. There was something off about this man, something dangerous. Before Michael could respond, the man leaned in closer, his breath cold. "You always check the back door at 2 a.m., don't you?" That was the moment it clicked. The man had been watching him, tracking his every move. Michael felt a rush of panic flood through him. The man didn't say anything else. He stood there watching for a few moments longer. Then, without warning, he turned and walked out the door. Michael's hands were shaking. He immediately dialed 911, describing the man's unsettling behavior. But when the police arrived, the man was gone. There was no sign of him anywhere. Michael felt uneasy as the officers searched the area. They didn't find anything, no evidence of the man having been there for any other reason than a strange interaction. But Michael couldn't shake the feeling that the man had never left. The footsteps in the back lot, the way he knew Michael's routine. A week later, Michael was transferred to a different station, far away, but he couldn't stop looking over his shoulder. At night, whenever he saw a car parked with its headlights off, he would feel the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. He knew he was being watched. Do you think the man was just an obsessed stalker, or was there something darker at play? Have you ever had an encounter with someone that made you feel like you were being watched? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that will keep you up at night, wondering who's really watching you. Episode 3, The Visitor at Cypress Grove Inn. It was a night like any other at the Cypress Grove Inn, tucked away in a forgotten corner of the forest. The road to the inn was narrow, surrounded by dense trees that cut off any light from the moon. No street lights, no other buildings for miles. Only silence, except for the occasional rustling of leaves in the wind. A place people came to escape, to get away from everything. But for Evelyn, 24, it was just another night behind the front desk of the quiet, desolate hotel. She had taken the overnight shift for a reason. It was peaceful, or at least it used to be. But that night, something felt off. The wind was unnaturally still. The hum of the fluorescent lights above her head echoed too loudly in the empty lobby. She shivered, unsure why, but she pushed the feeling aside. It's just the isolation, she told herself. 10 p.m. She sat at the desk, flipping through the guest logs, her eyes glazed over. There were few cars parked outside, no one unusual, just another uneventful shift. That's when the door chimed. A man walked in. He was tall, wearing a dark trench coat, his face obscured by a wide-brimmed hat. The cold, unnerving atmosphere seemed to follow him inside. He didn't look tired, didn't seem to have the urgency of someone needing a room. He moved with a calm, almost unnatural slowness, his eyes darting across the room. "I need a room for the night," he said, his voice low and oddly mechanical. Evelyn, caught off guard, checked the computer. "We have one left, $75 for the night." She ran his card and the transaction went through without a hitch, though there was something off about the way he kept staring at her. He didn't blink, didn't smile. He took the key to room 204, his gaze lingering a second too long. "Thank you," Evelyn said, forcing the words out, her throat dry. But he was already turning, walking toward the stairs, his movements too deliberate, like a marionette being pulled on invisible strings. By midnight, Evelyn had already checked the cameras a dozen times. The night was so quiet, It felt like the world outside had ceased to exist. Then she looked up from her phone. The man was back, but this time, he wasn't standing at the desk. He was sitting on one of the couches in the dark corner of the lobby. The TV was off, but his eyes were locked on it, unblinking, staring at the empty screen. "Is everything all right, sir?" Evelyn asked, trying to keep her voice steady. He didn't answer right away. His head shifted slowly toward her, eyes wide, almost unnaturally wide. "I can't sleep," he said, his voice devoid of any emotion. He sounded more like a machine, not a person. Evelyn nodded, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The silence stretched too long. She glanced back at the monitors. His profile was still in the same position, unmoving. Half an hour passed. Something wasn't right. She got up to grab a drink from the vending machine. As she walked across the lobby, she felt his gaze follow her, his eyes piercing through her, though he never moved his head. When she returned to the desk, he was still there, staring. "Are you all right?" she asked, trying again, a slight quiver in her voice. His lips curled into a faint, twisted smile. "Just tired," he muttered, but his eyes never left the screen. Something in her gut told her to check the system again. When Evelyn pulled up the guest list, her blood ran cold. Room 204 was listed as vacant. No charge had gone through for his card, and there was no record of his name in the system. She thought she was seeing things. It had to be a glitch. She checked the key card log. No entry. Her hands shook as she dialed the phone to room 204, praying for an answer. The phone rang and rang. No answer. It was then that she realized this man hadn't even gone to his room. He had never been checked in. Evelyn stared at the man in the lobby. He hadn't moved. He wasn't even breathing the way a person would. He was just sitting there, still, staring at the screen that wasn't even on. Her heart pounded in her chest. Something was wrong, deeply wrong. She couldn't wait any longer. "Excuse me, sir," Evelyn began, but before she could finish her sentence, he turned his head slowly toward her. Eyes locked onto hers. "You should leave," he whispered as if compelling her to go. Evelyn stumbled back. The unease twisted in her stomach, and she rushed to the back office, locking the door behind her. She grabbed the phone, dialing her manager, Cynthia. "Cynthia, something's wrong. The man in room 204, he's not supposed to be here. I think..." Suddenly, the phone cut off. The line went dead. Evelyn glanced up at the cameras again. The man had disappeared. Where had he gone? The back hallway, the stairwell, the dark corner near the vending machines. The cameras followed him, but he didn't show up. He was in the building somewhere, and Evelyn couldn't find him. Then the buzzer rang. Evelyn froze. She thought it might be the police, but it wasn't. The door opened, and another man, a stranger, stepped inside. A figure from her nightmares. He turned his head slowly, eyes searching for something. "Is everything okay?" he asked with a grin. But it wasn't a friendly smile. It was a predator's smile. Evelyn's breath caught in her throat as the man from the lobby appeared behind him, his smile twisting into something more grotesque. The door opened again, and Cynthia rushed inside with the police. But the men were gone, vanished. The officers checked the security tapes, but the footage was corrupted, nothing but static. "There's no record of anyone else being in the building," one officer said. "No sign of forced entry." But Evelyn knew what she had seen and what she felt. In the days that followed, strange things began to happen. The hotel's guest log was wiped clean. The room numbers on the second floor were switched, and Evelyn couldn't shake the feeling that the man in the trench coat had never left. Every night she swore she could hear him, standing in the lobby, watching her through the dark, waiting. What do you think the man's intentions were? Was he just a ghost or something far darker? Have you ever had a strange encounter that left you questioning what's real? Comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more terrifying stories that will keep you up at night.